مدرب وائل 35 سنة، مدرب مدربين، مدرب في اللغة الإنجليزية لمدة 15 سنة، مدرب في لغة الجسد، مدرب في الفراسة، مستشار وماستر في البرمجة اللغوية والعصبية، مدرب في التسويق، مدرب في التجارة الدولية، مدرب في تسيير الموارد البشرية. أنا مدرب لمضيفي ومضيفات الطيران.
As a beginner student, I'm fully enthusiastic to start learning this language. I found your method very important and very attractive, and it will be a pleasure to collaborate with you in gathering knowledge and achieve high degrees of fluency and practice of language. So, firstly, I want to ask you a question that comes in any beginner's mind. How did you do that?
Great, excellent. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for all the questions. By the way, thank you very much for your introduction.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot. Things first things. The first step in teaching and how like the student gonna find the method attractive and so on is to break the ice with your students. What does it mean to break the ice? Which means you kind of like you build kind of like a relation with your student, a friendship with your student. This is the first thing. The second thing is you simplify the language. Because the English language is not kind of like you are building a rocket or you're going kind of like visiting the universe or something like this. No, at all. It's kind of like how to pronounce the words and how to use the grammar correctly. This is the language actually. It's not a big deal at all. Alright? Thanks a lot. Mm-hmm.
I will ask you the first question.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thanks. Do you think English is a difficult language to learn?
Not at all.
Okay,
Not
why?
at all. It's very easy. The English language is very, very easy to learn, to practice, to speak, to listen to write it. It's very easy. Just the people, like, especially not the native speakers or the foreigner speakers, they find it kind of like very difficult. It's no way. It's kind of like, I don't think I'm sorry. Why it's very easy? The first thing, the English language is very dynamic. It's very dynamic. What does it mean it's very dynamic? Which means every year we find kind of like we got some new words, some new vocabulary. The pronunciation of the English language and words is very, very, very easy. All right? You should kind of like find your way how to use it or how to speak it. Mm-hmm.
Yes. What's your favorite way to practice English?
The favorite way to practice English or language English is to talk to yourself through a mirror, which means you use the mirror and you talk to yourself by a mirror. This is the best one. The second thing is to practice English with your friends and with your classmates.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, what is the most difficult thing to learn in English?
The most difficult thing to learn in English is the pronunciation.
Okay.
Which means the pronunciation is a little bit difficult. It's not really difficult. It's kind of like, it's very easy and it has kind of like method how to study it or how to improve your pronunciation, which is we call the tongue twisters. The tongue twisters are kind of like words. They look like the same thing or they have the same pronunciation, but you should tell them in a fast way or in a speedy way. For example, I wish to wash my wristwatch, or she sells seashells by the seashore. Those sentences, you kind of like you pronounce them very fast, and you're gonna have kind of like, I won't tell you a native speaker, but it's kind of like half native speaker. Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
Why are you teaching English?
Well, I'm teaching English because actually it was kind of like my childhood dream to teach English. This is the first thing. And the second thing, English is the key of the world. So I would be very, very, very happy to give the key of the world, especially to the young people, like to go abroad and to communicate with other nationalities. Yes.
So, here about internet. How do
Yes.
you use internet to learn English?
Great. The internet, how to use it? You use it, for example, you go through Google, all right, for example, and you try to find English books. all right, English books. This is the first thing. The second thing, you go through YouTube and you kind of like, you watch some videos in English. For example, I'm gonna tell some kind of like some sessions like TEDx, for example. The TEDx lectures is a very good way to learn English, because in TEDx you find all the speakers of English around the world. The Australian, the British, the Americans, the Canadian, and so on. This is the first thing. The second thing, the internet is kind of like, you can go through the social media. Then in the social media you can find kind of like groups of foreigners, of Americans, British, Australians, and so on, Canadian also, Chinese, sometimes Japanese, and so on, like even from Asia, they speak English kind of like fluently. You enter into the groups, and you practice English with them. And then you can kind of like learn some new vocabulary. Okay, this is the first thing. The second thing, I'm gonna tell you something. Like foreigners, like I'm talking about the people or the nationalities who are their second language or third language is English. You find them very, very, very fluent in grammar. See, so yeah.
Which country is the best place to learn English?
The best place to learn English is where you are right now.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, thank you very much for this question. It's not about to learn English, you have to move to another continent or to another country. No, this is a mistake. Yeah, it helps you to improve it because you are going really to live between them. But actually, this is not kind of like a way, or it's kind of like the first, it's kind of like an option. No, not at all. For example, I met many people here in Algeria, for example, they speak English fluently, better than the Americans and British. They have kind of like really fluent English. See, thank you very much. Yeah.
What is the best way to teach vocabulary?
The best way to teach vocabulary, well, I'm talking about my method. I teach vocabulary through songs, through conversations, through some scenes from movies and so on.
Can you give me some books for beginners?
All right. The short stories of Sherlock Holmes, or as usual, I tell my students the book, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
So briefly, would you give us some tips how to teach English?
Great. Some tips to how to teach English. The first thing, you should break the ice with your students.
Yeah.
All right, which means you cannot like create friendship with them. The second thing is you should kind of like explain the lesson, and you put the lesson, especially in grammar and vocabulary, you put them under the microscope, which means you give all the details about the course, about the lesson. The third thing, you let them free to create conversations, to speak freely, and you kind of like you correct them from me and while, like don't kind of like don't correct them every time they make mistakes, and sometimes let them make mistakes. Don't correct them. In 3-5 sessions, you ask them about their mistakes, what they did before. Then they correct themselves. So don't give the language as ready. Let them search, let them work on themselves. Like this, they're gonna practice it and they're gonna learn it by heart. They're gonna love it. See, because they are kind of like struggling to learn it. Yes, thank you very much.
How can beginners improve English?
Beginners can improve English by creating their world in English, which means they put the settings of the language of their phones into English, their phones, their laptop, and so on, their Facebook, or the social media, their email, and everything. And also they can kind of like make or kind of like create conversations with their classmates, with their teachers, and so on. Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Wael.
Thank you very much, you too. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
You're
very much.
welcome.
Thanks a lot.